Question came to me not so long ago, like a few hours ago, and I got very excited about this question. I never heard this question, and I never thought about this question before, which is, everybody knows that we're in a interesting period in the calendar right now. We're between Purim and we're between Pesach. And there's a whole literature among the rabbis of this period of the year. What does it mean to go from Purim to Pesach? So I want to give, maybe, at least for me, a new angle on this question, okay? Which is the following question. Everybody knows that on Purim we have a mitzvah to drink wine specifically. And on Pesach, we also have a mitzvah to drink wine, the 4 cups of wine. So here's my question. What is the difference between the drinking of wine on Purim and the drinking of wine on Pesach? So I'm going to kind of get deeper into this and explore this with you. But I would also invite you to come up with your own explanation, since there's no official answer to this. The great thing about these type of questions is you can think about it on your own. You can come up with your own thing. And I want to remind you, because this is again another important yesod foundation, what the Or HaChaim says about coming up with new ideas in Torah. As long as your thought doesn't contradict Torah law, as long as it doesn't contradict halacha, then whatever you come up with is fine. Right? Doesn't mean other people have to like it, right? But whatever you come up with is fine. Like, a lot of times people come up to me and say, I have a thought, I don't know if it's correct or not. What do you mean if it's correct or not? The Torah is infinite. You know how many levels there are to the Torah? As long as it doesn't contradict Jewish law, and as long as it's meaningful to you, there's something to it. You know what I mean? So, anyway, let's get to this drinking question. So the drinking of Purim versus the drinking of Pesach. So let's just kind of go right into it. The drinking of Purim really is about expanding your mind and expanding your consciousness so that you see that even the finite is infinite. That you see even the ordinary is extraordinary. Right? That God, even when He's hidden, is operating full time in terms of our daily lives. That's Purim. That's Purim in a nutshell. And it's kind of hard to get to that place for a lot of us. So we drink and we get to this expanded place of consciousness. So you could say that the drinking of Pesach is similar. How so? So there's a story about the Kotzker Rebbe, that his Rebbe, the Shisker Rebbe, Reb Simcha Bonim, said to him before the Seder started, he said, you have to have a large cup for your 4 cups of wine. You have to have a large cup because you've got a big cup. Cup in Yiddish means head. So because you are such a brilliantly analytical Rebbe, so you need to drink more wine, right? To get out of it, to get to this more expanded place. Okay, so in that way, you could say the drinking of Pesach and the drinking of Purim are similar. But really I think that they're more different than they are similar. The drinking of Purim is adelo yada. So what does it mean to go beyond knowing? Where does the knowing begin? So the knowing begins with the Eitz Hadas, the tree of knowledge in the Garden of Eden. And by the end of Purim, we get to a place where we're like, ad lo yada. Ad means above. We're beyond the tree of knowledge. Like, so to speak, it's like we haven't gone to the tree of knowledge yet. We've transcended the limitations that the tree of knowledge put on us. Like, because we're so expansive. We're seeing God in absolutely everything. Okay, so that's where we're trying to get to. By the way, how do we get to that place? So I had the best suit of my life this year. and it was a good chevra, that was part of it, but it was because I learned this one particular Torah that really transformed my entire Suda and all of my drinking. So I saw it in Rabbi Avraham Sutton's book, in the name of the Ari. It's a book called The Light of Purim, an amazing book. And he basically gave a much deeper explanation of this gematria, which is crazy, this gematria. That, you're supposed to drink till you get to the point where you don't know the difference between Baruch Mordechai and Arur Haman. So the gematria of Baruch Mordechai is 502. Blessed is Mordechai. The gematria of Arur Haman, cursed is Haman, is also 502. They're both 502. So you have to drink so that you don't know the difference between the two. So on the most elemental level, what does that mean? The most basic level is that you understand that God is good and everything that comes from God is good, whether you receive it as blessing, like blessed is Mordechai, or whether you receive it in a way of suffering, like cursed is Haman, that it's all the same because it's all coming from God who's good, who's giving it as a blessing. So when you don't know the difference between the two things, whatever happens to you in life, you're receiving it the same way as from the goodness of God, then you've reached that place of Adalu Yada. Okay, so very good. That's what I would say would be the most basic understanding of that. Okay, but now listen to what the Ari says. Something unbelievable. He says that where does the other side, where does the Yetzer Hara, the Haman energy, the Sitra Achra, where does it get its energy from? It sucks off your Kedusha. It feeds off your Kedusha. So the 502 of cursed is Haman, do you know why it's exactly the same as the 502 is blessed is Mordechai? Because it's the same energy. The negative side has sucked away the energy of blessed is Mordechai. So the 502 of blessed of Mordechai gets sucked away by the Yetzer Hara and becomes the 502 of cursed is Haman. And what is the drinking of Purim now? Is that when you drink, remember the grape was the fruit from the tree of knowledge. And where does Haman's name appear in the Chumash? Hamin ha'etz, right? Which is from the tree of knowledge. So when you're drinking for mitzvah purposes, you are pulling back the energy, the life force of cursed is Haman. Every time you drink, which is for a mitzvah, you're taking all of the energy away from Haman and you're restoring it to the blessed place. And when you don't know the difference anymore, and you say to yourself periodically during your drinking, Baruch Mordechai, Arur Haman, and when you finally get to the place where you go, Baruch Haman, then you know that you're officially drunk, you've officially done the mitzvah. But what does that mean when you've said Baruch Haman? Now listen carefully. When you've said Baruch Haman, it means at that point, you've drunk back all of the energy from the other side. That's why it's Baruch Haman at that point, because Haman doesn't exist anymore. You completely robbed it of its life force. Okay, so at the Seder, when I got to that point of saying Baruch Haman, and I was drinking the whole time and I was thinking, like on a practical level, every time I was taking a sip, I was thinking, what part of me does the other side have that I'm taking back right now with my drinking? And one of the things that I was thinking about was in the morning when I don't get out of bed like a lion. I was like drinking and I was imagining myself in bed. And the longer I'd wait in bed, the more I realized that my life force was being pulled to the other side. And I'll tell you something, the next morning I jumped out of bed. I felt like I was me again. Like I had brought it all back to me. It was a great feeling. Now I'm struggling again, but at least that next morning was glorious, and that moment was glorious. And then I'll tell you something else I was so proud of. After I said Baruch Haman, I didn't take another drink. because someone was discussing with me, you see, when Noach, what was the first thing that Noach did after the world started all over again? In other words, after he got his energy back from the other side, right? The world's been recreated. He plants a vineyard, and I heard from Reb Shlomo in the name of the Zohar, why did he plant a vineyard? Why did he drink wine? Because he was trying to rectify the sin of Adam HaRishon. Just like Adam did the wrong thing with wine, now the world is starting all over again. He wants to do the right thing with wine. But what happened? He drank too much wine. You see, wine can go either way. It says in the Gemara, if you have a dream about wine, if you're a Talmud Chacham, it's a good thing. If you're not, it's a bad thing. Because depending on who you are and where you're holding, wine can either take you to a sanctified place, or wine can bring you down to the lowest level. So he drank a little too much, it seems. Noach drank, but he drank maybe a little too much. So I was like, okay. After I heard that, I'm like, okay, I got to my Baruch Haman. I'm not drinking anymore. Okay, so now let's get back to the difference between the drinking of Purim and the drinking of Pesach. So I want to say the following, and now, as Reb Shlomo would say, open up your heart, because now we're getting deeper. Now we're getting to the nitty-gritty now. Okay. You see, the whole idea of drinking for Purim is that we get to this place of expanded consciousness where we see that everything is a miracle. Okay, but are you ready for this? On Pesach, we don't need to get to the place where everything is a miracle, because that's our starting point. Because Pesach is all about open miracles. I'm going to say that again. Listen carefully. On Purim, we drink to the place where we say, oh, even in my regular everyday life, there's God. And God is doing miracles even if I can't see them. That's Purim. On Pesach, from the very beginning of Pesach, it's already open miracles. And you see, this is the question. How are we going to live our lives differently once we already know from the starting point that everything is open miracles? You see, Pesach, I want to say, is a different kind of drinking. That Pesach, we drink in order to sanctify ourselves. Pesach, the drinking takes place at a thing called a Seder. In other words, it's not about sort of like you kind of tear down all the walls of nature and there's a bit of abandon of the drinking of Purim, where it's sort of like, there it is, and there's partying, and there's masks, and there's costumes, and everything like that, and you get to this place. Now we're starting from the get-go. Everything is a miracle, and now the first cup is called what? What's the first cup of wine at a Seder called? It's got a name. What's the name of the first cup of the drinking of Pesach? Kadesh. Yeah. It's about sanctification now. Sanctification. And what's I don't know. Then what's the fifth cup? The fifth cup, the Kos Eliyahu. That's the Gula Shlema. That's the complete redemption. Remember, I told you about this minig. I heard it in the name of the Radziner, which was the third Yishpitzer Rebbe, an amazing minig. We've tried to do it at our home since I've heard about it. Where, the fifth cup, classically speaking, isn't drunk. But there's something awesome, if you like this, I recommend it, where you take a teaspoon of wine from the fifth cup and you pour it into your fourth cup. In other words, you're taking from the Geula Shlema, the complete redemption, and you're bringing it into your fourth cup. My daughter told me last week, she said she was talking with my uncle, so that's her great uncle. And she said, he has some silver from my great-grandmother. That was my uncle's grandmother, and it would be my daughter's great-great-grandmother. And I said, really? I never heard about this silver. And she said, yeah, he gave it to me. I said, okay. I said, what is the silver exactly? She said, 5 forks and 4 spoons. I was like, okay. I said, well, you've got brothers and sisters. It would be nice if you shared it with them. And she said, okay, I'm going to do that. And she said, I want to do something special with the spoon. I said, you know what? Why don't you use that spoon just Seder night in order to take that teaspoon from the 5th cup and bring it into your 4th cup? Why don't you save it? That will be a special spoon that's only used Seder night. And she said, yeah, that's a great idea. I'm going to do that. What kind of life will you lead differently if you start the day off that everything is a miracle? Where that's not like something that just hits you on a Shabbos or just hits you at a Farbrengen, but where that is your starting point of consciousness, how you begin every single day. How is your life going to change? How are the choices that you're going to make going to change? So let me suggest one thing. I told you that the drinking of Purim is adelo yada. It's like you're propelled above the tree of knowledge. But now on Pesach, Rebbe Nachman says that like the eating of the matzah, and I assume he means the drinking of the wine as well, is the fixing of the Eitz Hadas. It's like on Pesach, now we get a do-over. Now that we know that absolutely everything is miraculous, it's like we're in the Garden of Eden one more time, and we get to approach the Eitz Hadas one more time with our drinking, within the context of Seder, of order. Now, I heard something very, very interesting, which is that we were always destined to eat from the tree of knowledge. We just did it too soon. So there's 2 versions that I've heard. One version is that we could have eaten from the tree of knowledge, but first we had to eat from the tree of life. Now think about that for a moment. There are a lot of people who know so much, but you know what? They haven't done any living. So what is their level of knowing exactly? So the example that I would give is a child. Have you ever been corrected by your own child? Like the example that I always like to give is the following. A child thinks this way. If 1 candy bar is good, then 30 candy bars, if I eat 30 candy bars, that's 30 times as good. And you say to your child, no, if you eat 30 candy bars right now, you're going to get a terrible stomach ache. And the child says, Dad, let me do it one more time for you. I'll go a little slower. If 1 candy bar is good, 30 candy bars is going to be 30 times as good. Do you get it now, Dad? And you go, you don't understand. You're going to get sick. You're going to get sick. He's like, where did I lose you? I'll do it again. So what's going on here? The child thinks they know more than you. But what's absent? The child hasn't done the living that you've done. You see, I made a mathematical formula one time, which is intelligence plus experience equals wisdom. You see, what we want is wisdom. We don't want intelligence. Do you know how many smart people have screwed up the world? A lot of the problems we're in right now is because of the smart people, not because of the dumb people. Because they were smart, but they didn't have wisdom. A child can be very intelligent, but a child doesn't have the life experience. Now, with that in mind, let's revisit the thing. We could have eaten from the tree of knowledge, but first we had to eat from the tree of life. Do you understand? If we ate from the tree of life first, then we would know what to do with the intelligence. We ate from the intelligence first, but we didn't know anything. So all of a sudden we think that we can be like God. We can join the God club. What are you talking about? Only God is God. The snake says to us, don't you want to be like God? And we go, yeah, that makes perfect sense. I'd love to be like God. Clearly they're talking to someone who doesn't know anything, because we didn't eat from the tree of life yet. The other version that I heard was that we would eat from the tree of knowledge once it was Shabbos. Once it's Shabbos, and then you're all built out, and then you're a complete person, because Shabbos is our soulmate. You're only complete, really, when you've got your soulmate. Shabbos is our soulmate. Once we had a Shabbos in us, then we could eat from the tree of knowledge. So now, what was the problem? We didn't have patience. So let's be practical one more time again. What kind of life are you going to lead differently? What kind of different choices are we going to make if our starting point is that everything is miracles? Not that our end point is everything is miracles, but when we wake up with the notion that everything is miracles. You know what we're going to be? You ready for this? More patient. Because if we see everything as miracles, we're going to be like, God, you got this. What do I have to worry about? What am I getting stressed out about exactly if everything is miracles? And then when we're patient, now we're approaching the tree of knowledge again, and now we can do it from a standpoint of sanctity, and to do it in the right way in the right time. I'll just close with this one story. It's a famous story. I'm sure you all know it, but it's, as Reb Shlomo would say, it's always good to hear again. So, Rabbi Nachman tells the story about two beggars. One's Jewish, one's not so Jewish. And the Jew says to the non-Jew, we're going to go to shul tonight. You're really in luck. Tonight is Pesach night. We'll sit in the shul. No one gets left in the shul alone Pesach night. Someone's going to take you home. You're going to go to someone's house and you're going to get a big dinner. So they both go into shul. They both get taken as guests to different places. The next day, the Jew says to the non-Jew, did I tell you? And the non-Jew said, I don't know what you're talking about. They took me to this place. We sat around this table. And all they did was talk. No one was eating. They talked and they talked and they talked. And then finally, at one point, they gave me a little piece of parsley. What kind of dinner is this? These people are insane. And then they talked more and they talked more. And then finally, they brought out the food. And it was the most bitter thing in the world, maror. And I threw my hands up in there and I said, you people are crazy. And I left. And the Jew says back to him, if only you had waited a little longer, you would have gotten the best meal. That's patience. That's patience. But where do we get, but here's the point. if you want to be patient, what is the quality that allows you to have patience? And the answer is confidence. But what gives you confidence? Knowing that everything is a miracle from the get-go. If you know as a starting point that everything is a miracle, then you have confidence, and then you have patience, and from that patience will come the Gula Shlema, the complete redemption. Chaim, Chaim.